90.3 WHPC, the voice of Nassau Community College. Welcome to another edition of From the Press Box. I am Rob Leonard. From the Press Box is part of the Sports Talk family here at WHPC. We're on every Monday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Sports Talk daily, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. And then there's an additional show every Tuesday night, 10 p.m. to midnight. I am Rob Leonard. Joining me, of course, is my brother and award-winning sports writer, Tim Leonard. Hello, brother. How you doing?
Doing outstanding, brother. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm doing great, man. Just the best. The best on this hot as hell day. Hot as Hades, we'll say. It's very hot out. But, you know, what can you do? It's either that or, you know.
So, warm Monday morning, brother.
We've been in Palm Springs, so this hasn't approached Palm Springs in the summer.
Not even
so
close.
we know the difference for those who say, well, it's really hot. Well, yeah, it is. But then you go to Palm Springs and you cook outside. You know, you feel bad when you see a dog walking around. You know.
Wow.
Anyway, Andy Vasquez of the Bergen Record, he is the Jets beat writer, will be joining us at about 9:20, and we'll be talking about the Jamal Adams trade, among other things, as the NFL season looks to. I don't know what they're going to be doing, but they're going to be doing something. We'll get some information from Andy.
Training camps are starting soon, brother.
Yeah, well, and hopefully there's a season. You know, that's always the other thing.
Fingers crossed.
Okay, brother. Let's start out with the baseball, because I think that's the one that is learning along the way. You know, you have MLS doing it. You have the NWSL doing it already, where they had no people in the audience, where they had crowd noises. But Major League Baseball is different because not everyone watches soccer, and soccer also is a different type of sport to watch. So we've had the Mets and the Yankees now playing. Interesting things with the crowd noise. I guess the home team gets to make the crowd noise louder when they're winning, because I've seen that.
I guess.
Well, I have. It's
okay.
Interesting. You see a little bit louder. You just get a little bit louder when, a home run happens or, double or whatever. Well, yeah. I mean, that's what it'd be if it was actual crowd there. But you don't expect, the guy or the girl running the board to be saying, "Okay, we're winning right now. Let's make this a little louder for us." You know.
Yes, brother.
So
it's just like anybody else. If you were at a home game for the Yankees, then yeah, the Yankee crowd would be louder when they score.
Sure, but it's just this is fake noise, and there's a reason why there's fake noise. First of all, to give it some sort of cohesion. Second of all, it does cover some of the players who might be using language that isn't heard in church per se. We've heard some teams get caught using many F words or F bombs.
It's going to be worse when the NBA starts.
Yeah, well,
much worse when the NBA starts.
Yeah, I know that. So, you got this, this cover up, so to speak. Not a cover up as something bad, but just a covering.
I get what you're saying, bro. Yeah, it's covering.
Yeah, a covering of what it might sound, and I understand why they have this noise there. I totally understand it. Matter of fact, after a while, I don't even notice it, except when it gets too loud. And I'm listening to Gary, Keith, and Ron, and all of a sudden I can't hear them as much. It's a little bit higher. That's the only thing I can really say. Now, the Yankees, they played good this weekend against the Nationals.
Good weekend for the Yankees, all except for the James Paxton start, which was not good. Yeah, and speaking of player sounds, you heard Giancarlo Stanton in the opener with a very loud exultation when he crushed a Max Scherzer pitch. I don't know what the official distance was. The first distance that was told was 417 feet, which was an absolute lie, because maybe add about 60 feet to that, and that's how far Stanton hit that ball. It was at least 470. Well, he hit a bomb off of one of the best pitchers in baseball, and that helped the Yankees to a 4-1 win. Garrett Cole looked like an ace. He went. There was a rain-shortened game. It started pouring in Washington D.C. So the game was called after 6 innings. But Garrett Cole was a beast. Just racking up outs. Wasn't even striking out a lot of guys until the later innings. But outstanding start for him. Good first start, good debut, and also when you go 6 innings and give up 1 run, that's what you want to see from Garrett Cole. I'd love to see about 12 more starts like that from him. But the day after, like I said, James Paxton, not good. And then yesterday, the Yankees got a 3-2 win. Gleyber Torres, who seems to do very well in the state of Maryland. It kills the Orioles, and yesterday he hit a home run against the Nationals. Luke Voigt also hit a home run, and then Gleyber singled in what proved to be the winning run in the
it's Washington, D.C., brother, not Maryland, but it's all part of it.
I
consider
that all Maryland. Until they make D.C. a state like they should, but until they make D.C. a state.
No, they should. No, they should.
But until
Nassau
they do
County,
that,
Nassau County has more people than the Washington, D.C.
Fine, make them a state too if they want.
Well, they're not
going to. Nassau County has representation. D.C. doesn't.
Well, that's different. Representation's different.
Well, but that's what I'm talking about. So
you can always move D.C. to Maryland.
For me, that's all Maryland as far as I'm concerned. And Gleyber Torres seems to just crush baseballs when he's down in crab country, let's call it, as opposed to Maryland or D.C. or whatever geographical restrictions they want to play. But Gleyber Torres hits baseballs hard when he gets down there. And good weekend for the Yankees. You take 2 out of 3 from the defending reigning World Series champions. That's a nice start to the season, as opposed to the Boston Red Sox, who lost 2 out of 3 to the Baltimore Orioles, who were still expected to lose 100 games even in the 60-game schedule.
That'd be great to do if they could do that. I wouldn't be surprised if they actually did it. They could forfeit some games. They could say, hey, we're not going to play today.
That's still only 1 loss.
So anyway, the Yankees are looking good. The Mets, I don't know, man. Rick Porcello, I don't know.
Not a good start for Rick Porcello.
Not a good start at all, actually. Very poor.
No.
The Braves destroyed the Mets last night. Just beat them down, basically. It was just, even if there is a Chipper Jones and his son pictures in the crowd. So those who don't know, Chipper
Jones paid $172.
Yeah.
For 2 cardboard cutouts. So there is a cardboard cutout of Chipper Jones sitting at Citi Field. Got some good seats too.
Yeah, well,
and his son who because he did so well against the Mets, he named him Shea.
I thought it was his middle name. What's his middle name?
No, that's his first name. It's some expert level trolling by Chipper Jones, and I'm sure he can afford the $172 that it cost.
Yeah, well, it's amazing that people would spend that money just for that. Supposedly, if the ball hits your thing, like if you get a home run or a foul ball, they will send it to you. I'm not sure how they decide that or figure that out. But
here's what happened yesterday. Jeff McNeil apparently has 3 of those cardboard cutouts of his dogs out in right field, and I forget who it was from the Braves hit a home run that hit one of the dogs yesterday.
Oh, okay.
And there was also another home run, because let's face it, the Mets lost 14-1. There's a lot of home runs in that game. But another fan out in left field, his cutout got hit and broke the neck off. Like the neck is now half like major. If it was a real human, it would be major surgery, or either that or he'd be dead, one or the other. But they showed a close up. I mean, I guess that's the reason people did it, was because for $86 they have the chance of being on TV or for this, in this guy's case, being on SportsCenter repeatedly. But that guy, I don't know, who knows who he is. He's obviously just a fan, regular fan, but they showed his cutout because it hit off kind of the side of the head, and the head got bent back, and they showed it torn, and it's like, all right, well, what do you do with that? Do they fix it? Do they send him to the cardboard hospital for an MRI?
Well, I don't think it's cardboard because cardboard would break differently. It's got to have a little bit of a backing in it or something. I don't know, but it's got to be something.
No idea, brother.
Because if it starts to rain, if it was just cardboard, if in the rain, it would fall apart. So you ever leave cardboard out in the rain, it disintegrates. So it can't be that. Now a couple of things. I don't know if you know the answer, but
I'll do my best, brother.
Now that the DH is part of all of Major League Baseball, which I'm not happy about, and I hope that next year they go back and they don't try to just sneak it in. They're keeping it. But who was the first National League person to be the DH? Because we all know.
I do not know that, brother.
The great trivia question, and it's a Yankee answer. Who was the first DH to ever play in the American League?
Ron Blomberg.
The Boomer.
I could find that out for you if you give me a minute, brother. You should have told me that answer.
Yeah, I'll
because it would have been from the Giants Dodgers game on Thursday night.
Right. So I'm just wondering.
Give me a second,
now, mind you, they've had DH.
I'll find out.
They've had the DH in playoff games. I mean, World Series games. So, but in the regular season, I'm talking about. So it's just something I thought about this whole weekend, and it's better. You think about that when the Mets are losing. And, of course, both broadcast teams, so the Mets and Yankees, are broadcasting out of their stadiums. They are not following the team.
That is correct.
And they're not
Which makes it a little weird. It definitely makes it a little weird. You have broadcasters just looking out into an empty stadium. And we talked a little bit about this last week. Gary Thorne, when he was doing the Mets-Yankees game, he said there were more than a couple of times where he saw something on the screen and he immediately looked up because he wanted to see what was happening live, and there's nothing there because he's not in the stadium where the game is happening. So
right.
That's it's a little bit strange, but it is what it is, as they say.
Well, I saw the post game, the interview, the press briefing afterwards, and it just looks so boring. The player, I forgot who the player was, but he wasn't. I'm sure you've seen it where a player doesn't want to talk or anything, and he kind of mumbles. But when you actually watch it on screen,
yes,
and they're mumbling away to some press guy's question, it looks even worse. It's like, why am I wasting my time with this? I know the press guy's looking for a quote or something, but it's just like like that. So I was
the same noise you make to imitate me, brother.
No, my noise is beep 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 beep.
That one,
which is actually from Shemp Howard, brother. By the way, so
all right. The answer to your question, brother, is the first National League DH is, drum roll please, Hunter Pence.
Hunter Pence, all right,
of the San Francisco Giants, first inning against the Dodgers.
I'm sure they did that on purpose. Instead of putting up at last.
He grounded out to the pitcher.
All right,
what a milestone!
Hey, that's what the trivia is all about, brother.
Hunter Pence.
Ron Blomberg, I think, is bad as in the Hall of Fame, and
I don't know, maybe
that's the only way
Hunter
Ron Blomberg would have made the Hall of Fame. Though he had a couple of decent years, So, it's good to know the National League. Also, part of the Yankees, brother, this is good news. Donald Trump, our president, our fearless president, will not be throwing out the first pitch on August 15th. He's too busy fighting with COVID-19.
What a disaster this was. Because when it was announced that Donald Trump was going to be throwing out the first pitch at an August Yankees game, there was immediate outrage. Because nobody wants him to do it, and the only reason that Trump even wanted to do it was twofold. Number one, because Anthony Fauci, the fine doctor, was invited to throw out the first pitch for the Washington Nationals game against the Yankees, the season opener. And obviously Trump had his feelings hurt because it's Fauci and it's taking attention away from him. And of course, Trump. We know that Trump can't handle having any attention taken away from him ever. And Randy Levine of the Yankees, one of the front office people, immediately invited Trump. I don't even know if he got any approval for it, or he just, President Trump, you want to throw out the first pitch? And of course, Trump said yes. So once that happened, Yankee fans were outraged. I know this for a fact. Yankee Twitter, as they call it, was a buzz. And they asked a couple players about it, and Giancarlo Stanton said, you know what, that's in August. We're not there yet. Let's see what happens, that sort of thing. Because Stanton was one of two Yankees, he and Aaron Hicks, who kneeled during the national anthem against the Nationals.
Right.
Because all the players kneeled before the game, and they had this long black cloth, and it was supposed to show unity, and there was a statement from Morgan Freeman on the Jumbotron before the game, and it was a very nice pregame ceremony. But once the national anthem started, pretty much all of the players stood up, but Hicks and Stanton continued to take a knee. So that would have been an issue for Trump immediately. And we all know that if Yankee Stadium was full for Trump throwing out the first pitch, that probably 90% of the people in attendance would have booed Trump. And
well, he's been booed before. He's been booed before.
It would have been bad in New York because there aren't a whole lot of New Yorkers who like him, except the millionaires who he's given tax breaks to. But baseball fans would have booed him. So Trump decided and said yesterday on Twitter that, I'm going to quote here, quote, because of my strong focus on the China virus, okay, that's good, stupid, including scheduled meetings on vaccines, our economy, and much else, whatever much else means, I won't be able to be in New York to throw out the opening pitch for the Yankees on August 15th. We will make it later in the season. All right, well, I can tell you at least a couple of lies in that statement. Number one, I'm not going to even bother with his reference to China virus as opposed to coronavirus. But Trump is, first of all, August 15th is a Saturday.
Right.
We all know what Trump does on the weekends. He's going to be playing golf. He's not going to be at Yankee Stadium. He's not going to be in meetings talking about coronavirus, which, let's face it, he's basically still ignoring because we still don't have enough PPE. We still don't have enough tests. We still are woefully lagging behind. And because our idiot president refuses to tell people to wear masks. So from that standpoint,
he sort of has now, brother. Not that he believes it, but yeah.
Not really.
Not that the people who follow him are doing it, but, you know.
But because of this, he like I said, on August 15th, there is no doubt in my mind that he will be on a golf course, more than likely his own, either in Florida or in New Jersey, and he will be playing golf. So there will be no quote-unquote scheduled meetings because he doesn't schedule meetings. And, well, I'll take that back because somebody will scream at me. Yeah, he does schedule meetings, but I doubt that his meeting schedule is planned for 2.5, 3 weeks from now. Highly doubtful.
No, but also, he could have gone to the place in Jersey and then drove up. Not that he would do that, but I just think I think you're right. I think Fauci, did it, so of course he has to do it. So that's the way he works.
Exactly. Exactly.
The spotlight always has to be on Donald Trump. Exactly. Unfortunately.
Yes, Brian. So, I'm pretty sure that Andy Vasquez is going to be joining us in a minute. So I will just point this out that after 3 games, brother, in Major League Baseball, we no longer have any undefeated teams.
That's pretty quick.
Unbelievable. Just fast, zip, zip. Everybody has a fast start, but nobody's 3-0. So that happened quickly. Also, brother, I would like to mention that the Miami Marlins right now are the scariest team in baseball, and it's not for a good reason. Nope. The 4 Miami Marlins players have tested positive for the coronavirus, including Jose Urena, who was supposed to start Sunday's game, but that caused the Marlins to delay their post-game trip home to Miami because they were in Philadelphia, and obviously gives a lot of concern about a possible team outbreak. 4 players, besides Urena, catcher Jorge Alfaro, he was placed on the injured list before Friday's game, the season opener. Infielder Garrett Cooper and outfielder Harold Ramirez. The positive tests were first reported by baseball writer Robert Murray, who I'll be honest, I don't know, but good for him, good story. Don Mattingly, the Marlins manager, said that the team decided to wait until Monday to leave Philadelphia and that they plan to arrive in Miami just hours before their home opener against the Baltimore Orioles. Fortunately, not really. Teams don't really need to be rested to face the Orioles. But the trip is likely to be made with multiple players remaining behind in quarantine in Philadelphia. And this is the reality of playing in a pandemic.
Well, the one thing, I don't know why they're being locked in Philly. Why wouldn't they drive them home? The reason I say that is because if you leave them in Philly and they get better, they do the 14 days or the 21 days, they have to do another quarantine to get back into Florida.
No.
No.
Well, I mean, I don't know where the Marlins are in 14 days. I don't know if they're home, if they're on the road or whatever.
Well, that would be the thing.
This is the issue. And where are they quarantined? Are they going to leave them in a hotel for 14 days? I have no idea. But to me, if you're going to drive them back down to Florida, then you probably need to do it in an ambulance, because who knows how serious any of these cases are. And if it is in an ambulance, where do you find an ambulance to drive 1,000 miles?
Well, that's easy to do. I mean, you just
I don't know about that. I mean, I think they'd be better off getting some sort of one of those like ambulance jets or something like that. They have those.
Well, I would maybe just flying back. You'd want them in your own state, where your own doctors are, and you work it out from there. I mean, all sports right now is flying blind because they've never done this before, and I think we really haven't seen a lot of COVID in the soccer, and baseball. You're going to see a little, I'm sure, more. Of course, the NBA and the NHL is starting up, so we'll see what happens there. It's just something that's, your eyes are hopefully open when you're flying, or not hopefully open, but they hopefully are open, because no one.
I hope the pilot's eyes are open when they're flying, brother.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing going on here that you can figure out, because no one's ever done this before. I think that all the leagues came back just to see if it can be done. I'm not none of them want to close their season, especially baseball. Baseball doesn't want to, they did it. The NHL's done it a number of times, or seemingly a number of times. So you don't want to cancel your season. I'm sure all these teams aren't going to make as much money this year.
Right. This is the danger of having the season, though, is if there is an outbreak on the team, and let's face it, 4 players to me is considered an outbreak, because you don't know how many more players are going to be, get a positive diagnosis. So these guys, if even one of them is asymptomatic and he somehow came in and infected people, that's obviously a bad thing, and that could have enormous repercussions. Let's say that these 4, let's say in the next 48 hours that 6 more Marlins test positive. Well, now what do you do? The only positive thing is that it's the Marlins, and nobody's expecting them to contend. So if you replace 10 players on their roster with 10 minor leaguers or whoever is around to make up the 30-man roster and fill out, they have the 30-man taxi squad of minor leaguers, is the talent level really going to be that different?
Sammy, there's a breaking story that our director, Sean Novat, just sent to us. Breaking news from ESPN, 8 more players and 2 Marlin coaches test positive for COVID-19. The team's home opener tonight versus the Orioles is canceled.
Wow.
So that's a lot of that's a third of your team right there.
Exactly.
More than a third.
It is a third, because it's right now they're using 30 players. So now what do you do? And all right, so now they canceled. And so what are they going to do with those games? Because we're in a situation with baseball where they're playing 60 games in about 67 days.
Right.
So how do you you can't just cancel games. How do you replay that game, and at what point do you replay that game? And is 10 going to be the lowest number? Because let's face it, there could be another half dozen tomorrow.
Sean just sent us the Marlins are staying in Philly, and this is going to be the clubhouse that the Yankees are going to be in next.
Oh, no.
So Well, I'm sure it's going to be, sprayed with every known chemical.
That Brian Cashman's going to be in there himself personally with a mop and a disinfectant, and they're going to be.
But if you remember, they have 30-man teams now this year.
Right.
If you remember what I said they should have a 50-man team.
Like I said, they have 30 minor leaguers, and those guys are working out at team facilities. So, for the Yankees, I'll assume that they're in Tampa, but they are working out and they're prepared to play if that's the case. And this, like what's happening with the Marlins, that will certainly be the case.
Okay, brother, on the phone with us, he is the beat writer for the New York Jets, or covering the New York Jets for the Bergen Record. We welcome back to the show. He's been on the show many times. Andy Vasquez. Andy, welcome back. Via Zoom.
Guys, thanks for having me on. I'm hanging in there. It's the baseball news right now is a little disturbing, but
very disturbing.
It's hard. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you guys were just talking about it, but it's hard to imagine how football is going to. Obviously, football's. I'm not an epidemiologist, but it's not hard to figure out that football is a sport where guys are going to be interacting much more closely together than in baseball. And if you're having these outbreaks in baseball after 4 days outside of a bubble, how is it going to work with the NFL? I mean, we live in a country where we don't seem to be taking this seriously as a whole. So it's hard to imagine when you have an infection rate that's so high in certain places, how is this going to work?
So many places that are big on football,
especially
Florida and Texas, and
It's discouraging, man. It's upsetting. It's discouraging, and it makes you wonder how this is going to work. But all we can do is kind of take it one day at a time, I guess.
Yeah, and this is something that we've talked about on the show before. That obviously, with baseball, the players can somewhat socially distance, and they're not on top of each other. But in football, I mean, especially, I've said it before, the linemen are, to me, the guys who are most in jeopardy because they're smashing into each other on every play. You can't avoid it.
Yeah, and you're talking about at that point, you're talking about it in baseball, at least opposing teams aren't really in physical contact with each other. In football, you're talking about not only spreading within a team, but from team to team because of that offensive line, defensive line clash on every single play that's inherent to the game. So
exactly.
I don't think you have to be a doctor to figure that out. But
I certainly am not a doctor, and we've been talking about it for several weeks.
Yeah.
Andy, before we talk about Jamal Adams, let's talk about what the NFL is doing. It seems that they're a little behind in what to figure out with the players and NFL football. Sometimes I think the NFL walks around saying, well, this isn't going to affect us because we're the NFL. I was wondering what they have been doing and what have you seen so far?
Well, I think it looks like they're more behind than they are, just because I think that was how it was going to have to be negotiation wise, that these sides weren't going to get together until there was, consequential stuff on the table in terms of pushing back the start of the season, stuff like that. I think it's just kind of the nature of negotiations. I think they do have a safety plan in place, but I think there is, probably some arrogance to that. The fact that the NFL thinks that it can do this outside of a bubble in a country where there are infection rates that are so high in certain places, by letting people into the community, it's just hard to imagine how there isn't going to be some infection. So I was shocked. The NFL knows how much money is at stake here, and the NFL is going to lose a ton of money, obviously, already without fans being in the stands in a normal way. But the fact that they are leaving this open to chance by not being in a bubble when there's billions of dollars at stake, it surprises me, to be honest with you. And I think that's the big issue here is how is this going to work outside of a bubble in the NFL if it's not working outside of a bubble in Major League Baseball where the distance is much greater. I mean, I think golf has shown that it can work in the bubble. And I think the NBA is showing and the NHL will show that it can work in a bubble, but outside of a bubble, it's hard to see football working.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that also when you talk about a bubble, I mean, we're seeing between yesterday and today that with baseball, if one outbreak can turn into a dozen in a hurry, and I know that football the plan is to carry extra players. I heard that they're going to have about 80 or so in camp, but I'm not even sure what their plan is as far as, I mean, obviously it's going to be more than a 53-man roster, but how many extra players can you carry? And given like we've been talking about how much contact there is and the obvious propensity for the offensive and defensive lines to catch this thing and spread it, is a dozen extra players going to be enough? I'm not even sure it will be.
I think it doesn't cover it. I think.
Yeah, I don't think it will, but it's not. I don't think it's going to be. I don't have the guidelines in front of me, but I think what they're doing is expanding the practice squad from 10 to 16 players and allowing veterans. Usually, the practice squad, I think there's a certain amount of service time that once you get past a few years, you can't be on the practice squad anymore. But they're going to allow veterans on the practice squad, and they're going to allow more flexibility in terms of moving players to the practice squad. But the roster will still be 53 men. They'll allow there to be 2 extra players carried on the game day roster, which will now be up from 46 to 48. So, I don't think that's going to be enough. But, I mean, I think that's not even the biggest problem. The biggest problem is, how if you're getting outbreaks of 15 people on baseball teams, what's an outbreak on a football team going to look like, and how do you get through a whole season avoiding that?
Well, I mean, and before we go into Jamal Adams, I'll pose that question to you. Number one, do you think we even make it to the beginning of the NFL season? And if we do you think we'll make it to a Super Bowl?
Yeah, I think they're gonna try. I think it would be, everything we know about the NFL, they're gonna try to do what's gonna get them their money. So yeah. I think they're gonna try. I think that week 1 they'll be playing, and it's going to be a matter of personal responsibility. And maybe they tighten up the rules and make a bubble around every team, which would give them a chance. I think it's too late in the game here to do an NBA-like thing. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they have a contingency plans that we don't know about, and maybe they go to those. But I would hope they have a contingency plan for a bubble. It would be kind of insane not to. So, but yeah, I think they're going. I think they're going to try. I don't know how we get to a complete season if they stay out of a bubble. But I think they'll, even if the season gets delayed by a month or 2, I think they're going to get to a Super Bowl somehow. I don't know if everybody will agree with how they get there, but I think they will. I think short of a player dying or a coach dying, that they're going to keep going. That's just my opinion.
Well, one thing about the NFL against all the other leagues is they have one game a week, and there's 17 weeks, and there's a week off during that time, and then the playoffs. So they can move this around a little bit. As much as the NFL and the Super Bowl are in February, and that's on purpose for the ratings. You can move the Super Bowl to May if you wanted to keep it in the ratings thing, and hopefully by then, when we have a new president, we'll get actual testing, and or maybe the cure will happen, or something will do something to it.
Yeah,
some
vaccine
sort of treatment. Or cure.
A treatment.
Yeah. So the funny thing is, and I've said this before, but I'll say it to you, Andy, and then we'll start talking about Jamal. Trump hates the NFL because they wouldn't let him get into the league as that exclusive club that is the NFL, and he hates the NFL because of it. And imagine he destroyed the Super Bowl, for this year because of his lack of caring about the COVID-19. That would be like an ultimate Trump thing, that he purposely or non-purposely, but destroyed something else in his way. That happens many times with Trump. That it gets destroyed. A couple of casinos, an airline, Trump University, all those other things too. But if he could destroy the Super Bowl, that'd be the ultimate thing. People would hate him for life. Half the country watches the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get into the whole political thing, but
it's okay.
I would say simply that I'm a sports fan. I love football. I love all sports. I don't want to see the Super Bowl canceled, of course, or ruined. But we're at the point where, I think there's so many bigger concerns even than sports. I don't think it's like you can't do these other things. You shouldn't do sports because you can't do these other things. I don't have a problem with the leagues trying, but I'm more worried about kids getting back into school and stuff. And if that's ruined, exactly. It's so much worse. I mean, it's just incredible that we're in this situation. And it's even more frustrating when you see that sports are being played in a bubble in Europe for months with no problem because they're taking it seriously. And here we can't last 4 days because we have places where we're not taking it seriously. And even if people are taking precautions, they're going to get infected. So it sucks. Right. It's a bad situation to be in. And people should be angry. And because this didn't have to be this way. That's just my opinion. I don't think that's political. It didn't have to be this way, and it sucks.
And I mean, I actually mentioned that yesterday because yesterday was the last day of the Premier League, and they've been playing now for probably, I don't even know, about 2 months. And there hasn't been a single case reported in the Premier League, and they've been testing just like our teams have been testing. So they've managed to finish their season, and we're looking at situations now where the Miami Marlins are now, it's an issue, and there are still players like Aroldis Chapman is still on the injured list because of COVID-19. There's several players in the league who were on that list and are waiting for 2 positive tests in a row before they can come back. But yeah, it's still an issue because we refuse to take this thing seriously as an entire nation. So I agree 100% with what you just said there. It couldn't be more true.
Okay, let's kick
it back into a different reason for outrage, at least among Jet fans. The trade of safety, all-pro safety Jamal Adams on Saturday.
Good riddance.
Let me just throw it out because obviously this was preceded by Adams once again having all kinds of complaints and ripping the team. Were you at all taken by surprise when the trade happened? And because it seemed anyway like it happened kind of suddenly, or did you see Adams' latest diatribe as kind of being the last straw?
Well, yeah, it's one of those things where, I was surprised when it came across because I didn't expect him to get traded before the end of training camp or when you got close to the regular season because I thought that was when the Jets would have more leverage or more of an opportunity with other teams to make a deal. But overall, no, it wasn't surprising because Jamal Adams had made it very clear and was making it more clear with every day that he didn't want to be here and wasn't going to quietly be here or make things easy on the Jets if they kept him around, even though they had total control over him. So in one sense, I was surprised to see that they did it when they did, but also given the compensation the Jets got, here's a player who clearly didn't want to be here and was going to make their lives miserable, and they still got 2 first-round picks for him, and he's a safety. So, I think that's also surprising, and you have to give the Jets credit there that they were able to get that kind of a haul for Jamal Adams.
Yeah, I mean, to get 2 first-round picks for a safety, and you hear a lot of talk about quote-unquote premium positions, and safety is not one of them, which is why when Adams said he wanted to be the highest-paid Jet, that means $17 million at least for a safety. That's not something a lot of teams I think would be looking forward to paying. And I thought it was pretty telling that the Seahawks did not rework Adams' contract before the trade was finalized. So now his contract situation is the Seahawks' problem. So we'll see where it goes from there.
Yeah, I think I think he's going to be a little bit more lenient with the Seahawks. I think some of his demands were probably based more on the fact that he was done with the Jets than anything. I think, if they make him the highest paid safety in the game, I think he'll be happy even if it's not the highest paid player on the team. And if you guys keep going back to October when this all kind of fell apart or started to fall apart. And Jamal Adams said he was really upset the Jets shopped him because he viewed himself as kind of an untouchable player. But there's no way to know this for sure. But in hindsight, it sure looks like he was more upset that he didn't get traded, that he saw an opportunity to get out of a team where he wasn't winning, and that's been wearing on him for a while now. Going back to his rookie year, the losing has been wearing on him. He saw an opportunity to get out, and he maximized that opportunity. And it certainly doesn't make him look, very good up from a personal standpoint. But it ended up being a move in his best interest, probably, and he got it done. So you got to give him credit there. And the Jets were able to get something good out of it. So I guess to that extent, both sides were able to win, even though it's not exactly a feel-good story.
Right. The whole thing with Adams, to me, that one of the things that kind of irked me is, here he is, the team MVP for the last 2 years. How is a team supposed to move forward if their best player is also their biggest malcontent? And is that how? I mean, did Adams leave the negotiations off to the side when he was on the field, or was this something that he just kind of carried with him all the time since this first became an issue?
No, I mean, you cannot question him as a football player. Even last year, after all of the stuff that happened, he played his best football after that. He played really well, took it to another level, and if you can say whatever you want about him, I would have been confident that if they had, even under the current circumstances, they had brought him back and he had gotten to the field, he would have been the same player that he was. So you can't fault him for that. But where I fault him is this guy talks constantly about how he's a leader and how it's important to him to be a leader and be all in for his teammates, and that was quite frankly BS, considering what he did last year after the trade deadline, making it all about himself, and what he did this year, making it all about himself again. That's not something that a leader does. That's something that somebody who's out for their own interest does. And you can say whatever you want about where the Jets are headed, but Jamal Adams didn't want to be a part of that, and that's not something that a leader does. If a leader would have played out his contract and left if that's what he wanted to do, which is what many other players have done over the years. And Jamal Adams didn't do that. So the narrative about him being a great leader, the one that he advances himself, I think has taken a hit. It's not to say he can't rebuild it, but Jets fans will kind of always know the truth on that by the way he behaved here.
Yeah, Adams is always going to be, for Jet fans anyway, as far as I'm concerned, a great player who whined his way out of town.
Yeah.
And just complained enough that they finally said, all right, you know what, we got to get rid of this guy. So anyway, let me just, because we didn't say this before, and I'll take the blame for myself on that. Let's just, anybody who hasn't heard about this trade, the Jets did send Jamal Adams and a 2022 fourth round pick to the Seattle Seahawks in exchange for first round picks in 2021 and 22, third round pick in 2021, and safety Bradley McDougald. And then the trade still, I assume, still is not final because of pending physicals. But like you said before, Andy, it's a nice haul for a player who has been outspokenly criticizing the team. But what I liked about the story that you wrote the other day when the trade was announced, now it's up to GM Joe Douglas to actually do something with these picks. And if you look at the recent number one picks that the Jets have made, pretty much Sam Darnold aside, it's certainly not a list of all-pro candidates, and most of them are not with the team anymore from the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty incredible. Jamal Adams is, I think, if you go from 2013 to 2017, he's the fifth first-round pick that they've traded away. It was Sheldon Richardson, Calvin Pryor, Muhammad Wilkerson was before that. It's hard to keep it straight. But Sheldon Richardson, Pryor, Darren Lee, Leonard Williams, and now Jamal Adams. So,
right.
And out of all those guys, the only ones who weren't busts, I mean, are Leonard Williams and I guess Sheldon Richardson played above his
For at least one season, anyway.
Yeah. So, but you're talking about only one of them was an absolute hit in Jamal Adams, and Leonard Williams never really lived up to the expectation as a solid player. So,
Right.
so the key here is it doesn't matter that you have these first-round picks if you can't draft or make the right maneuvers. So the jury is still out, obviously, on Joe Douglas as a drafter. I think there's a lot of evidence now that he knows what he's doing in terms of negotiating with other teams, given what he was able to do in the draft this year with some trades and given what he was able to do with this trade. But, yeah, he's got to get these right for this to matter. And that's the thing. You're giving away a sure thing in Jamal Adams because he is an all-pro. He is a guy who I think he has even more of an impact than a normal safety does just because he plays so many plays outside of that safety role. He was basically a linebacker for them for a lot of the year / edge rusher. He was the best edge rusher on the team, a guy who can be a kind of linebacker who covers better than any linebacker. So
Right.
he is, a valuable player to them and an impact maker. And it's going to be hard to find that kind of value even with what they got. But they were in a difficult situation. And I would be remiss if I didn't say this. The Jets are to blame partially for being in this difficult situation. Joe Douglas, there's a lot of questionable things here about why is he saying he wants to make Jamal a Jet for life, and then it doesn't appear that they ever really seriously wanted to negotiate this year. So, which is also understandable. So you can like the way that Joe Douglas handled the trade without liking the way that he handled the negotiations and having serious questions about why over the past year there have been so many disgruntled players willing to publicly criticize the team. And that's a big issue going forward to watch is why are the Jets constantly pissing off their own players?
Exactly, and that you have to also include Adam Gase in that because obviously he's the coach and he's the guy who's with the players every day. And are those players getting pissed off because of something that originates with Gase and then maybe is supported by Joe Douglas? So, yeah, it's certainly something that bears watching going forward, given that both of these guys are still so young in their tenures.
Yep.
Well, hold on, brother. I just want to say we're talking to Andy Vasquez, New York Jets beat writer. I got a question about Jamal Adams. What did he say about the trade? Was he super happy? Was he like, I got the right team?
Yeah, I mean, he basically took a victory lap on Twitter. Jamal Adams had the I guess the best way to put it, had the gall to request certain teams that he wanted to land with, even though he didn't have a no trade clause. The Jets could have traded them anywhere they wanted to. Seattle was on that list, so Jamal Adams got to be thrilled. He's basically got everything he wanted. He goes from a situation where he had zero leverage because the Jets had control of him through the 2022 season with the franchise tag, and even beyond there potentially, to a situation now where he goes to a winning team, a team that he wanted to go to, presumably a coach that he wanted to play under, and he now has all of the leverage in his contract negotiations because if the Seahawks gave up 2 first-round picks for him and don't sign him to an extension, what are they doing? So he was literally on Instagram Live on Saturday night smoking a victory cigar, it appeared, while playing dominoes. So, yeah, he's happy, and it's, that's the one thing I think is going to be tough for Jets fans in this situation. I mean, they should be happy at least he didn't go to the Cowboys, but yeah, this kind of behavior was rewarded, and I don't blame Joe Douglas for taking the deal. But part of me, I think, anyone who's watching the situation wanted to see the Jets kind of stick it to him because of the way he was behaving, and not to say that he's not right to be concerned about the Jets' direction going forward, but to kind of force his way out in that manner, it would have kind of been interesting to see what would have happened if the Jets had just been like, we're not trading you, and he had to play the next two or maybe 3 years here in a situation. It would have obviously been awful in the locker room potentially, but
absolutely,
yeah, it's an interesting kind of dynamic there.
Just talk about just Adams as the guy in the locker room. Was he a disturbing presence in the locker room? Clearly, he's an outspoken guy, but did that get old as far as the media goes, as far as his teammates go? Good interview, honest guy, insightful guy. Are you going to miss him? Any of those?
So the first part of the question is, did he rub his players his teammates in the locker room the wrong way? I think, yeah, probably a little bit. And you go back to last year when he was doing all of his complaining after the trade deadline, that whole situation. I think back then there was an interesting situation where Adams was giving like his second interview in less than a week in the locker room, where he was basically publicly bashing the team for having the gall to consider trading him. And Le'Veon Bell like went over there and kind of mocked him and interrupted him and kind of undermined him. And at the time we asked Le'Veon about it. He says, no, I don't have any problem with Jamal. But I think he was upset because Jamal had recruited Le'Veon to come to the Jets. And then Le'Veon was a guy who was highly critical of him the other day after the trade on Twitter, and they kind of went back and forth a little bit. And
I saw some of that.
Yeah, so I think the answer is that he rubbed some of his teammates in the locker room the wrong way, but nobody else prepared harder. Nobody else was more engaged and ready to play on game day, and he backed it up and brought it every single time he was out there. I mean, there was never a game where it was like, where did Jamal Adams show up today? Like, that was never a question. He played hard and at a high level every time he took the field. So I think he was, in that regard, able to earn his teammates' respect, and kind of like maybe guys would roll their eyes at the way he behaved and the things he said, but they knew he was there on game day, and that's kind of the ultimate in an NFL locker room. So in that regard, he was respected. In terms of us, he was mercurial. He was, one day he was friendly and would talk to me off to the side, no problem. Another day you're going up to him and asking him, something off to the side, and he clearly is going to make your life difficult and kind of make it clear that he doesn't want to talk to you. But he was a good quote. I wouldn't say he was honest. He was always kind of, in what's the best interest in Jamal, and saying the things that he thought, made him sound good. Like, for example, he had the first pick six of his career, week 3 against the Patriots in New England, and it was in a meaningless game. They got absolutely blown out. And he said after the game, like, oh, it doesn't matter about the pick six. It's not about me. And then talks about the pick six in great detail for like the next 3 minutes and how great it was. And then later on Instagram, he's posting photos about like how he kept the gloves and the ball from his so, it's kind of full of it. When he's saying that it's not about me, it was about him. It was always about him. But
right.
But he was a good quote, and he was kind of an interesting guy to cover. So you're willing to let some of that stuff go. And I will miss having an interesting kind of dynamic personality that people care about in the locker room. But having to check my phone every day and worrying about what did Jamal Adams say now, I won't miss that.
No doubt. Just give me an analysis of the trade. I mean, and that means both short term and long term, because obviously today the Jets
and Andy,
aren't.
Before I have to cut my brother off for a second, we have about 4 minutes left, so make it quick.
Yeah, but just short term and long term, because obviously short term it doesn't help. But does this maybe help? And again, we said about Douglas has to do something with the picks. But could this help the Jets turn a corner faster and be a contender faster because of the extra picks?
Yeah, absolutely. I think short term it'll hurt because he was an impactful player, but it doesn't hurt as much as it would if they were a contender. Losing a player like Jamal Adams when you're not a good team isn't probably even going to affect them in the win-loss column, because a player like Jamal Adams, he doesn't make the kind of plays that like directly win a game. If you can't score points and you have a great safety, it doesn't really matter. If you can't, if you have cornerbacks who can't cover, and he can't save you on that, but he can make those kind of difference-making plays that are if a team's in close games. Long term, yeah, I think it's going to help them turn that corner, because either they have the ammo to make trades in the draft that can get them an impact player, or they have the ammo to kind of rebuild. But long term, yeah, I think it helps them because it gives them – that's how you build in the NFL. You do not turn things around by doing it in free agency and making blockbuster trades usually. You have to do it by building in the draft, and they've started to do that. And and that's going to be their best opportunity. So now they have more firepower to do that, and I think it'll help. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Jets are better than people think they could be this year, just because that's going to come down to Sam Darnold. If Sam Darnold breaks out, then they're going to win some games. If he doesn't, then they're not going to. And that's the other part of this trade is if Sam Darnold struggles this year and you have questions about him, they now have firepower, draft capital to maybe go out and get another quarterback if that's what they need to do. So it does help them in a lot of ways long term. It does hurt them, but not as much as I think people think short term.
Well, thank you, Andy. We appreciate you coming on the show again. If people want to read your articles about the Jets, where do they go to find them? Yep,
it's northjersey.com, and there's a Jets page there in our sports section. And you can find me on Twitter at Andy_Vasquez. Check it out. Appreciate you guys following my work.
Andy Vasquez is a good follow on Twitter. I go to him for all my Jets stuff.
Thank you, Andy. We appreciate it.
Thanks, care, Andy. Man. Great stuff.
Thanks for having me on. You guys take care.
You too.
90.3 WHPC. We are from the press box. About 2 minutes left, brother. Quick things. Looks like Mike Tyson wants to pull a George Foreman and return to boxing. This actually could work because boxing is so poorly run right now, and Tyson is maybe the last person anyone knows about in boxing. It could actually work. We'll see what happens.
He is in his mid-50s now, brother. Let's talk about the Knicks hiring Tom Thibodeau as their new coach. That's a big deal. He has a 5-year deal on the table, and that to me is a great situation for the Knicks. They're finally doing stuff right, and that hasn't happened in a long time. But Thibodeau is the right guy for the job.
You're talking too much, Tim, and we should say the Islanders and the Rangers start Saturday, playing up in Toronto. That just about does it from the press box. My name is Rob Leonard. We're here every Monday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. We'll be on Spreaker.com later with this show as a podcast. And, brother, thank you, brother. Tim Leonard, award-winning sports writer, and all-around cool guy. And thanks, Sean Novak, for keeping this on the air. Take care and bye-bye.